What is up, YouTube? We are back here today talking about our reactions to this past weekend in the NFL, and I'm going to throw in my college football predictions today because it's Tuesday. Tomorrow's New Year's Eve. Going to be out celebrating with some friends. Not going to be able to get a predictions out before then. So I'm going to go ahead and cover my college today as well after we go over to NFL. Thursday, we'll go over the last week of the NFL regular season, and then I'm going on a little vacation. We'll be back on our normal stuff on Tuesday, but that's besides the point. If you're new here, this is the Fumble Pod. I am your host, Dalton Lee. Let's jump right on into it. We got NFL to talk about, then we're going to roll right into college. So, first, on Saturday, we had the Texans travel to LA to play the Chargers. Chargers favored by a point and a half. I didn't really think that was the true case. So, I took the Texans to win that game, and they did. And they did. Texans are actually up big at one point in this game. I think at one point they were up 17-3. They were kind of dominant in the first half and first half of the third quarter. And then Justin Herbert and the Chargers were just kind of clawing their way back. Able to put a drive or two together. They were able to get it within a touchdown, had a chance to get the ball back, and just failed to capitalize. That Texans defense is phenomenal. Utterly phenomenal. We had predicted 27-24. It was 17-10. That D line, I understand Chargers are hurt, so they're already struggling to block regular teams' defensive fronts. You cannot play against the Texans with a subpar offensive line. You can't. We saw it against the Chiefs now. We've seen it against Chargers. Hell, we've seen it against teams with really good offensive lines, and they've been very dominant up front. And it's not just their edges in Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson. Their D tackles are getting after it. And if it's not them, they're bringing linebackers. They truly can just fly around and make plays. The secondary is still a little spotty at times, but you can get away with that when you have a front seven playing this damn good. And the Texans can do great things if they're playing complementary football on offense. They ran the ball well. It allowed some easy passing lanes for C.J. Stroud, and he was able to get into a little bit of a rhythm, able to keep the chains moving. Once you get a lead, that's all you want to do is keep the chains moving, give your defense a break, and be able to put up some points. Yes, if Texans consistently put up 17 points, I don't think they're going to win games, especially in the postseason. But when your defense is only allowing 10 points a game, I mean, you know, it's just one of those things where you almost wish the offense could get a little. You could get a little more out of your offense because you'll probably need it once you get into your wild card, your second round. You know, because I firmly believe the Texans defense is good enough to get them to an AFC Championship. The defense is, but I don't think it's good enough to pick up the slack on a bad offensive performance. If the Texans defense plays phenomenal, but their offense only can put up 17 points, they'll lose probably in the second round. Maybe be able to sneak out a wild card win, but second round, by that point, you're playing a team like the Broncos or the Patriots. No, you're not going to be able to do it, unfortunately. So, but Chargers did start clawing their way back. Justin Herbert started looking good, and honestly, even with how close it ended up being, honestly, the Chargers had the opportunity to make plays. Their issue was they could not catch the ball. The running game showed up late, but they had a bad day through the air. I mean, Gaston had 3 or 4 drops. I think Quentin Johnson had a couple drops. Hell, even Lad McConkey and some of the running backs had some bad drops on some open plays. The only consistent guy was Keenan Allen, but at his age, you can't rely on him to get 10 catches for 120 plus yards and a touchdown. So, again, I think Chargers just had a rough day on offense when Justin Herbert wasn't getting killed in his backfield. They were having a bad day throwing the football, but honestly, their defense still played really good. The Chargers, I'm still kind of high on just because it is Jim Harbaugh, and I think they have an identity they want to build. I think their issue mainly is the fact that their offensive line is beat up. I would say that's mainly it. The defense really isn't that bad. They've been playing really good. They got weapons. It's just when you're missing your two tackles that are arguably top 10 in the NFL, your offense is going to look bad. And then you keep having to deal with injuries on the offensive line. It's going to catch up to a team at some point. I still like them. I still think they're a really good team. I think this was a potential early playoff matchup. It would not shock me if these two teams have to play each other at some point in the playoffs, it'd be another fun game to watch. I'd be excited to watch. But truly a good game. Very close, very fun. Hope you like defense because that's what you got out of this one. And then we roll into our three Sunday games. So the first one, 1 o'clock kickoff, it was Seattle in Charlotte to play the Panthers. Seattle was favored by a touchdown. We picked them to win by a touchdown. And I will give the Panthers defense a lot of credit. Through 3 quarters, they were only losing by a touchdown. It was 10-3. And that was with your offense playing utterly awful. Could not really move the ball at all on Seattle's amazing defense. And yet you were still within a touchdown. And when it got to the point that you were down 17-3, your offense was finally able to put a drive together. You're able to get a potential stop and give your offense the ball back in the fourth quarter with a chance to go tie it. It just so happens that on 3rd and 21, you cannot have a face mask. You cannot, especially on a play where the quarterback is throwing just a little quick out to JSN. He's going to go out of bounds just because it's 3rd and 21. They're just trying to give room to the punter. And J.C. Horn, you cannot tackle high. You cannot tackle high just for the simple fact of even if you don't make the tackle, which wide receivers are going to go out of bounds, but the fact of potentially getting your hands anywhere close to the face mask, you can't, especially on 3rd and 21 in a close game, which then gives Seattle a first down, and then they're able to kill another 45 minutes of clock and get another score to basically put away any hopes of a comeback that late in the fourth quarter. But outside of that, I thought the Panthers defense played really good. JSN didn't do a whole lot in the first half. The running game was hit or miss against them. Sam Darnold looked a little rough at times. I will give credit to that defensive line. Defensive line actually played pretty good in the run game and getting after the quarterback. But it doesn't help when your offense in the first half can only put together 30 yards and your starting quarterback ends the day with, I think it was 60 passing yards, maybe 70. You can't expect to win football games like that. And even though this Panthers defense has been playing better as of late, they were playing like they were the Seattle Seahawks defense, who is very good. That defense is not going to play that good week in and week out, realistically speaking. But credit Seattle. They were in a dogfight. They were able to figure out ways to continue to win in the dogfight. Sam Darnold and Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, Cooper Kupp, JSN, they were all figuring out ways to make plays, and they did when they needed to. Between them and the defense, their defense was able to force a couple turnovers. They were able to put their offense in good spots to score, and that's what you got to do, especially in a game where it's going tick for tat. It's close, it's a dogfight, and you just need to be able to swing some type of momentum your way. And Seattle was able to do that. Now, the Panthers' playoff hopes relies on. I mean, they still control their path. This week they play Tampa. They win, they're in. If they lose, there's still technically a chance for them to get into the playoffs. Because, oddly enough, last night on Monday, a game I wasn't even going to talk about, the Falcons upset the Rams at home. Win by a field goal to in that game. Kick a last-minute field goal to win. And, which was crazy. Insane. If the Falcons end up beating the Saints this weekend, regardless of what happens in the Panthers-Bucks game, Panthers go to playoffs. Now, would it be a lot easier on Panthers fans and the organization if they just win Saturday? Absolutely. Versus having to root for the Falcons to beat the Saints? Yes. But at least there's a failsafe in case they end up dropping the last game of the season and the Falcons somehow muster out a win. You'll still be playing playoff football. But Seattle is now in a position where if they win next week, they're number 1 seed. So credit them. That's a damn good football team. If the offense can be a little more consistent with the way that defense is playing, I think they would be able to go to the Super Bowl no problem and possibly be the favorite by 4 points at least, depending on who they play. But that Seattle team is phenomenal. I think they're the best team in football with the way they've been playing the last couple of weeks. I understand Sam Darnold at times has his moments, brings the offense back down to earth a little bit, but if he can just be slightly above average with the way that defense plays and the way they can run the ball and the weapons he has, that's a phenomenal team, man. Truly phenomenal team. So credit the Seahawks going in there and winning, getting it when they needed to the most. Panthers gotta go back to drawing board. And then 425. This was an interesting game. Bills were favored by a point and a half. I trusted it. I had them winning 24-16. Bills were down 13-0 for a good chunk of this game, mainly in the first half. You get to the second half, and all of a sudden the Bills defense is playing phenomenal. It's pouring down rain. It's cold in Buffalo. And the Bills are able to put a drive together, miss the PAT. So it's 13-6. And it's like, okay. They get the ball late with a chance to go down and tie it. And you're like, okay. Moving down the field, moving down the field. You have a couple crazy catches by, I think Shavers was one of the guys. Brandon Cooks had a crazy one on that final drive on a post route to put him in first and goal situation. They're milking clock. They're trying to get in and score. They score a touchdown with, I think, 5 seconds left. Kick the PAT, you're going to overtime. I'm like, okay. Keep in mind at this point, they go to overtime. The Eagles have only had one first down in the second half. The Eagles had a total of 30 yards in the second half to the Bills 170. All the momentum is on Buffalo's side. At home, and I think what could be possibly their last home game. I can't remember if their last game's at home or not. And Sean McDermott is like, we're going to go for two. We're going to go to win the game. It's like, okay. I guess, just because you can kind of look at it as two different ways. Yes, all the momentum is on your side. Yes, you just scored 12 unanswered points. You're at home, 5 seconds left. Tensions are running high. Why not go ahead and win this thing? I understand that part because it goes, okay, we win this game. We get this 2-point, game's over. They're not scoring with 5 seconds left. I can see that point. But at the same time, you have the opportunity to go to overtime with all the momentum. Your defense has played lights out in the second half. More than likely, if the trend continues, you're going to get a stop. You'll be able to get in some sort of field goal range and score a game-winning field goal. In my mind, just with the way everything's gone, I'm going to overtime. I'm going to overtime. Which, granted, you wouldn't have had to if you made the first PAT, because then you'd just be able to kick a second one, call it a day. But I have to respect it and tip the cap to the sheer fact of Sean McDermott thought they had the hot hand and he wanted to risk it all. Because you score on that 2-point conversion, which receiver was open. Josh Allen rolling left, kind of pulls it left, just misses him. Makes a better throw, you're winning that game. But if you win that game, you're going into Week 18 with a chance to still win the division and have a home game. So I respect it. Eagles got lucky. Eagles got very lucky in this game. If the Eagles show up at any point in the postseason playing like that, they will lose. And they will probably lose by worse than... they'll probably lose by a score or two, easily. If they got to go to, San Fran, Seattle, LA and play like this, you're going to lose. If you go to Chicago playing like this, you're going to lose. If you're at home and you just catch a team on a good night, like there's a world where they could be at home and hosting, let's say hypothetically, they have to play a Panthers or Bucks. Panthers and Bucks at their best would beat the Eagles if they play like this. Easily. Any team could beat the Eagles if they're playing like this. And the defense isn't really that big of the issue. The defense is still playing pretty good. But your offense in the second half can only put together 30 yards and only be able to put together one first down. That's not a championship caliber team. I'm sorry. It's not. Which is crazy because you look at a roster. The roster is phenomenal. But if you can't figure out how to win close games in terms of being able to put a drive together at least once in the second half, you're not going to have a chance. And it just blows my mind that they only win strictly because the Bills had one bad play, in my opinion. So, again, Eagles win. Like to see them do it again in this type of situation. The Bills, I think they're going to learn from this. I think they'll be ready if they get into another situation like this again. Maybe they still go for two and they're able to execute better, or they go to overtime with the high hand. Who knows? But it was still a really good, really entertaining finish to that game. And then we get to what arguably was probably the best game of the weekend, the Sunday night football game. You had the Bears in San Fran. San Fran was favored by 3. We took them to win by 4, 28-24. And Brock Purdy starts the game with a pick six. Okay, shout out Chicago. 49ers didn't answer. Get a stop, get the ball back, score again. Like, uh-oh. All the momentum's on their side. Nope. That Bears offense is able to go down the field and score. Shout out Luther Burden. And then from there, we're just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Eventually, somebody's got to kick a field goal. Somebody gets a touchdown. So we're like, okay, somebody is going to end up winning this game. Going back and forth, back and forth. San Francisco goes up late, 42-38. The over smashed. 42-38 with, I think, right there at 3 minutes left in the game. Like, okay, let's see if Caleb's got it. Caleb starts putting together a little drive. They're getting right down the field. It's like, okay. Then we're right there in the red zone, second down, and Caleb Williams throws up a little jump ball prayer over the middle with no timeouts. And receiver comes down with it. They got to rush on the ball and spike it. And the only reason I'm bringing this up, even though it worked, it was a successful play. Caleb threw a ball that was into double coverage. Receiver had to make a play, which he did. But he missed a DJ Moore running underneath that you hit him in the hands, he's taking it to the crib with 13 seconds left in the game. Because now you get onto the ball. By the time you get on the ball and spike it, you have 4 seconds left. You have to score a touchdown. And then Caleb gets the ball, starts playing a little backyard football, and running to his left, kind of fading away from the throw, throws it short. That's ball game. Still, very entertaining game. Arguably could be game of the year, which is crazy to say because there's probably been 4 or 5 games this year that we'd say were game of the year. So we've had some great football this year. But I just do think kind of late in that game there was a couple miscues on plays. I think Ben Johnson still called a phenomenal day. But again, these are some of the growing pains you're going to have with Caleb Williams. Second year guy. Could argue he's almost like a first year player just because the coaching turmoil he went with last year versus this year, you've already seen the growth. But I still think there is plenty more room. He has all the physical traits. Some of his accuracy can get a little wonky at times. I think he's got to clean some of that up. But you catch him on a good day, he's playing phenomenal. And he's got the talent around him to be really good. And the defense has slowly gotten better too. I know this game doesn't really show it, but you win against another juggernaut of an offense between Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Jawan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall. I mean, they got guys over there. Kendrick Bourne's making big plays. It was just one of those games where it was like, oh wow, San Francisco wins strictly because they're at home and they're able to get one of the necessary stops to go out and win the game. It was peak cinema. Now let's jump into our college football predictions. We got 4 games this weekend, and I'm honestly excited for all of them. So, Wednesday night, 7:30 kickoff. You got number 10 Miami playing number 2 Ohio State in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl in Dallas. OSU is favored 9.5 points, and rightfully so. They're the number 2 team in the country. Their only loss is coming to number 1 Indiana in a close game in the conference championship. This game's going to go one of 2 ways, in my opinion. Either Ohio State's going to come out and beat the brakes off of Miami just because if it's a shootout, Ohio State's going to put up 45 points and Miami maybe puts together 14 to 17 points. Or it's going to somehow be a dogfight between these 2 defenses because say what you want about Miami as a whole, that defense is phenomenal. And I would say the biggest issue about this Ohio State team is that offensive line and the lack of a running game at times. And this Miami defensive line is phenomenal. Ruben Bain, phenomenal. future NFL guy for sure. So, do I think Miami's going to win the game? No. Do I think they could cover 9.5? Maybe. Maybe. It depends on how that defense plays. And I think in terms of personnel matchup, I think for Miami secondary, it's a terrible matchup because you're having to guard Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, which is a nightmare for anybody. And Julian Sand, who was in the Heisman race for a reason. But for Ohio State's offensive line, I think it's a terrible matchup as well, just because this Miami defense is phenomenal. They're top 5 in the country in a lot of defensive statistics in terms of defensive line production. I am still taking Ohio State to win the game. I'm taking them to win 27-21. Covers the 9.5. Keeps it close. Yes, I understand. That means you're sitting here thinking you think Miami's going to be able to score 21 points against this Ohio State defense. I think Malachi Tony is good for one crazy play. And the defense might be able to force one crazy turnover in the red zone. That's 2 of your touchdowns right there. But, again, good thing football games are played on the field, not on paper. Now, let's jump into our 3 New Year's Day matchups. I actually really like all of these matchups. At noon, you got number 5 Oregon playing number 4 Texas Tech in the Capital One Orange Bowl down in Miami. Oregon is favored 2.5 points in this game. And the way I feel about this game is similar to how I feel about the Ohio State Oregon or Ohio State Miami game. This Oregon offensive line kind of worries me in terms of how are they going to block this Texas Tech defensive line. This Tech defensive line has been phenomenal all year, arguably the best defensive line that money can buy in the transfer portal, and they've put it on paper. Bailey is phenomenal. You had conversations going around with Rodriguez about being a potential Heisman just because of everything he does at middle linebacker for this defense. They have a really good defense. Their offense is solid. They got a good running game. They have a really good passing attack when the run game is going. They play a lot of complementary football. But Texas Tech's issue is if that defensive line isn't getting home, quarterbacks are throwing all over them. The only game they lost was to Sam Leavitt, an unranked Arizona State team with Sam Leavitt. He threw for 350 yards. First game back from an injury. Kind of worries me just because if Oregon can't run the ball, they have the ability to throw it. They have talent on the outside. Dante Moore is a phenomenal talent. They can do it. But, in counterpart, if James Madison can force 3 turnovers out of the quarterback, Texas Tech can do the same. So, truly, I think it's going to be the matter of Oregon's offensive line versus Tech's defensive line. If they can block them, it's Oregon's win all day. But if Tech's defensive line is kind of able to have their way, I like Texas Tech in the game. I truly think that's where the difference is in the matchup, is how much of an impact does Texas Tech defensive line have in this game. And I'm going against the favorites. I'm taking Texas Tech in this game. Just because I've seen numerous teams like Indiana give Oregon issues on their offensive line. Indiana's defensive line played phenomenal, and I would argue Texas Tech's defensive line is just as good as Indiana's. So with that, I like Texas Tech. Give me Texas Tech win this game 31-28. I think it will have to come down to a tight, close finish, but I think that they'll be able to take a lead and tell their defensive line, go make a play. And they'll be able to do it. Because you're going to force Dante Moore to have to hold the ball just a second longer, and that'll be the difference just because that defensive line, I think, is going to wreak havoc. Then we get to 4 o'clock kickoff. Number 9 Alabama playing number 1 Indiana in the Rose Bowl out in SoCal, Southern California. It's going to be great. The only issue going into this, I think they're calling for rain. So it's not going to be necessarily a pretty day. Granted, this could change. This is 2 days from now. Weather can change. But I think right now they're calling for a little rain, little precipitation in the air. So immediately, with that thought going in, is okay, who can run the ball better? I still don't trust Alabama's running game. they're definitely a more pass-oriented team. That's what they've been all year. They have had no sustainable run game from the running backs. Indiana can do a bit of everything on offense. Yes, Fernando Mendoza just won the Heisman, but they've ran the ball really well this year too, especially when they can go up early and run the ball often. So if it's going to be one of those grinded out, run the ball attack type of games, I like Indiana. I think Indiana could arguably still be kind of overrated as the number one team just because they got lucky against Ohio State once, but the way that defense plays and the offense is able to just put enough together to win the game that they need to, I like Indiana in this game. I think Indiana's going to be able to run the ball better and prove me wrong. I still don't think they're the number one team in the country. I would still say it's Ohio State. I want to be proven wrong. And I think they will. I think Indiana's going to win by 2 scores. Give me Indiana 21 to 21 to 13. 21-13, 20 somewhere in that realm. It's not going to be a super high scoring affair just cuz if it rains, it's going to be a run first game. And I like Indiana in those odds. If it had to be a shootout, it's a toss up. But I don't think it's going to be a shootout. I think it's going to be a run heavy oriented type of game. Give me Indiana 21-13. Then we get to our 8 o'clock game. A game that, if you told me this was happening about 2 months ago, I'd be so excited to watch. Even though we saw this matchup once, that was a great game. Yeah, number 6 Ole Miss playing number 3 Georgia in the Allstate Sugar Bowl, which I do believe is played in Atlanta. So it's almost like a home game for Georgia. But Georgia's favorite 6.5. But the reason why this game would have been really good is because it would have been Lane Kiffin versus Kirby Smart, two of the top coaches in their respective fields. Lane Kiffin, arguably the best play caller on offense in college football, and Kirby Smart, arguably one of the best defensive minds right now in college football. The only issue is Lane Kiffin is no longer at LSU or Ole Miss. He has since left to go to Baton Rouge to coach the LSU Tigers. So you got your interim coach coaching up the boys in Ole Miss. And I understand they had a good week 2 weeks ago when they played Tulane. Had a good game, but it's Georgia we're talking about. And with Georgia, the defense has figured out how to play football again. We've seen it the last 3 or 4 games that they played. Coming down the stretch late in the season, in the regular season, and then the belt to ass that they put on Alabama in the SEC championship game. Truly, that defense has been phenomenal. And the offense has slacked off a little bit, but not a whole lot. When they're able to run the ball and give Gunnar Stockton a little time to make reads and make some throws, they're still highly efficient. But I don't think they're going to have to ask of the offense a whole lot. I think they'll be able to run the ball well on Ole Miss, and that defense is going to get after the offense. Their favorite 6.5. I like them to cover that spread easily as well. I like Georgia in this game 28-17. I still think Ole Miss has enough talent to put up some points, but I think Ole Miss or Georgia in the second half is going to be able to wear down Ole Miss, put their foot on their neck, and roll right on through. So yeah, we're going to have a great weekend of college football. And then Thursday, I'm going to be able to start talking about NFL football because there's still a couple great games that determine some playoff spots and some seeding. So I think there's going to be some great games on Saturday and Sunday as well. If you're new here, subscribe, hit the notifications button, let you know we're posting more content. If you've been around for a minute, like the video, share with some friends. Let me know some of your thoughts. Let me know how your team's doing in whether it's bowl season for your college team, or are they going to the postseason in the NFL? Are they on the outside looking in, or are you just kind of ready to see if they're able to put it together to go to the Super Bowl? But until next time, deuces.